Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to coverage of the VML. My name is Haiyue. I'm here with Kuro, and we are sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and Good Luck High Five. Kuro, welcome.
Yes.
First of all.
Yeah. Oh my
Kuro
gosh.
is one of our new members of the casting team this season, season 8 for the VML, biggest season ever, 128 players, 10 weeks of Magic Arena play until we get down to one champion right down at the end of it. And if you've just joined us for week number 7, this is a great time to be joining us because we are at the end of division play. This is the last round in which players can try and get those wins that they need to qualify into the single elimination rounds starting after the holiday break. Kuro, it's standard, it's arena, it's the playoffs looming on the horizon. What are you expecting to see from the players this week?
Oh, I expect to see a lot of cutthroat gameplay. The matches that we have lined up for everybody today are ones that are going to have a lot of drama in them, a lot of potential wins and ins, a lot of potential bad beats. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, we have chosen, by the way, really matches from a lot of divisions that are kind of both players alive, right? We've gone for that like winning in / losing out / dream crush kind of bracket. So all of the matches that you're going to see tonight are extremely high stakes, and we will find out who's going to go through from our awesome players that we have lined up. So, Kuro, without further ado, let's have a look at our first feature match of the evening. Before we're going to do that, we actually have the technology to bring you the metagame of VML Season 8, Week 7. Look at this. Okay, so, Kuro. Obviously, the headline figure, right? There's 35 Grixis mid-range decks. How much of that do you think is the effect of this being the last week and players kind of thinking, I just want to bring something reliable to try and get me that last win that I need?
I think that's a really major component in the choices for having a lot of these decks. It's well known and well shown to be an extremely viable threat in this metagame against pretty much everything else in the field. I also think that the propensity to do Azorius Soldiers, I know Mono Black is there, but I think Azorius Soldiers is especially interesting, particularly because of the recent release of the Brothers War, where people are still tinkering with that to try to address Grixis.
I am so excited to see some Azorius Soldiers. I've played a lot of Brothers War. I've mostly played Limited. I've played a lot of Brothers War. I've tried to make the Azorius Soldiers deck work many times in draft to varying degrees of success. And I'm really hoping to see whether our standard players can make better use of it than I've been able to in draft so far. Mono Black is pretty interesting as well. And then we have Esper and Mono White rounding out the last couple of the top decks. Mono Black, I think it would be a very exciting deck to see a little bit later on. Evolved Sleeper, one of the coolest one-drops that we've seen for a while, I think, in Standard, and hope to see that doing some work later on. So now we can maybe have a look at the first match that is coming up. Let's see who it is. We are going to division number 12, and we have Heather Bonnell. Heather is at 4-2. And, we always talk about the VML being an international affair. Tonight is no exception. Heather, hailing from the Great White North, she is Canadian. Yeah, that's right. Any polar bears in chat? Any moose in the chat? And Heather has brought Old Faithful Esper midrange. Now, Esper seems to have fallen a little bit out of favor the past couple of weeks. But Heather, I think, told us that she expected her opponent to be on aggro. And look at the cards that she has included. 4 copies of Fire Action Mystery, 4 copies of Denic, 3 copies of Deadly Repast. I mean, this is somebody that has metagamed heavily for their opponent.
Absolutely. I think the thing, Deadly Repost is such a card that I wanted to tinker with in Control that I've never found a place for. The thing I'm also interested in seeing is Extraction Specialist, which is extremely good card advantage engine, especially if you compare it with Raffine. Also to note is a lack of Tenacious Underdogs. I don't think I see any of those in here, which is kind of amazing to me. But that card is such a force in some situations.
Well, let's see whether Heather has predicted correctly as we switch over to her opponent's deck. It is the teacher with mono red aggro. Kuro, if you're the teacher coming into this week, Monday morning the decks get published and you see your opponent has brought 4 Denic, 4 Phyrexian Mystery, 3 Deadly Repulse, like what are your feelings?
I think I would be paying a lot of attention to the sideboard in this matchup. Those 3 Strangles against all of those 3 toughness creatures will prove to be very useful, I think, especially in games 2 and 3. I find it very curious to be playing a mono red deck in this format, especially with the Brothers War out, without any Mishra's Foundries. I wonder if that will matter at all in this match to be coming. That's a card I've been seeing emerge in those mono red aggro decks.
The thing about mono red players, Kuro, is that they don't really care about the metagame, right? In every single metagame, you're just gonna get your mono red players and they just gonna play their aggro decks, and it's served the teacher pretty well. She's at 4-2 in the division, playing for a playoff spot. Let's go down to the action and find out whether Heather's metagame scheming is going to pay off for her as we look at the opening hand. We do only have Heather's perspective at this time around. 2 copies of Denic, Intrepid Adversary, and Steel Seraph. That is a card that we have seen a lot of in the limited format. Seen a lot of brackets, small print in the limited format. Is Steel Seraph real for constructed, Kuro?
This is interesting. Every single card in Heather's hand can either has or can gain lifelink, which is so dangerous. But she started with a non-blue source, which means she can't play Denic turn. Oh, wait. Oh, it's a river. Just kidding. I thought that was the... See, I'm not used to playing river. All right, never mind.
Oh, it's fine. Don't worry. Look, Heather's got plenty of life to give to these pain lands because literally everything in the deck gains her life. Lightning Strike is going to take care of the first copy of Denic. It was going to go to the graveyard, and we'll maybe see that pop back up later on. Takanuma, the draw for Heather this particular turn. And is that the 3rd Denic that she found?
Yeah, it's so many Denics. Like everything in her hand gets lifelink or is a land. I'm wondering if this, I guess Seraph isn't the play right now because maybe she's worried about it dying to another Lightning Strike, because that would be pretty bad. Seraph is a fantastic card to have here because it's a really great blocker as well for that.
Oh, yeah, there are a lot of copies of Lightning Strike in the deck for the teacher, and also a bunch of other removal spells, Play with Fire, etc. Reckless Stormseeker comes down. This one we put as a card to watch because every time this werewolf hits the battlefield, Kuro, the fear just stabs into the heart of whoever's on the other side.
Yeah. I've lost to Reckless Stormseeker so many times. If you don't have a way to address it or answer it or at least defend against it, you're pretty much done. And if it flips to night, every single creature is a threat. Big deal.
Big deal, and big presence down on the battlefield. But Denic kind of holding down the fort a little bit here for Heather. Has a couple of options. Decides to go with Fiend's Tower and maybe just holding up this Igandra, Seat of the Empire, hoping to use that as a removal spell, Kuro.
Yeah, this will be interesting because Heather is playing a little defensively here, which may or may not pay off depending on what teacher has in their hand. This is if this is the copy of Raiju, this could be bad. Oh, not a Raiju. Okay.
Not a Raiju. Is a Voldaren Epicure. That is going to do one to the face as well. And here's Bloodthirsty Adversary. So the teacher really just prioritizing getting hasty threats down, since that Reckless Stormseeker, or the flip side of Reckless Stormseeker, Storm Charged Slasher. Yeah, that's right. I knew that. Does give haste to a creature. So Igandra does take care of it, but this is another big hit in. And Heather's going to go down to just 7 life. Can she hold on?
I think it all depends on what teacher has in her hand. It's all about running out the rest of the cards that she has and to make sure that the resources are depleted. If Heather can proactively counter burn spells by getting lifelink damage, that could potentially mean the difference between a win and a loss.
Here is Intrepid Adversary. Wow, look at this. Does not pay, does not want to get blown out by a play with fire or similar. It likes to just hold up the go for the throat in hand. And there it is. That was a huge heads up play there from Heather. And you can see she was ready for this matchup. She knew what was going to happen.
Absolutely. That go for the throat is looking for a good target. And I would imagine that it's looking for either a Stormseeker or even a Shivan Devastator, just because you want to kill something that costs more than 2 mana if you want to get mana advantage with that.
Let's see what the teacher decides to do. Denik is going to hold down the ground, it looks like, and Phoenix Chick's just coming in through the air. And Heather actually decides to use this go for the throat. Would you make this play, Kuro?
I don't think, well, it depends. I don't know, because if you think that your opponent has 2 lightning strikes, then that obviously is death. But I don't find that likely, so I don't know if I would do that play. That Firebrand would have been really nice to destroy. Also, since the Phoenix comes back, Denik doesn't prevent it from coming back to the battlefield. Denik only prevents things from being targeted. So that's a problem.
Steel Seraph is looking like a possibility. It would not do a lot to help necessarily this turn in terms of it doesn't have lifelink on your opponent's turn on the blocks. There's also a Phyrexian Missionary available, and as well as that copy of Denik that's just in the graveyard ready to be disturbed. And Heather's going to take a moment, take a beat here to just consider her options, because one wrong move here, Kuro, and it could be disastrous.
Yeah, Mono Red is always constantly looking for ways to get in and to make sure that it can basically catch the opponent off guard. Its Assault is relentless. Denik getting Vigilance, I think, is probably the best way, but yeah, don't even attack. I don't know, though. Trading it with an Adversary or a Firebrand may be okay. Although Firebrand is going to make Denik not block anyway. That's so rough.
It is rough. I think I kind of like the attack there as well, Kuro, as you said, because this Firebrand trigger kind of saying, you know, you can have your 2/3 lifelink. I don't really care about it. Here comes the Phoenix Chick. Steel Seraph the only blocker, and this just looks like lethal to me. That is 6 damage. Heather's a 6 life, and wow, it looks like you can pre-side against Mono Red all you like, but sometimes this is just going to happen to you, Kuro.
I think a lot of that was honestly because of the go for the throat on the Phoenix Chick. That was a little bit too defensive, in my opinion. If she had held that for the Rada's Firebrand, she probably would have won that game, or at least kept the game going on for a while.
You can't really blame her, though, I think, because I'm in the same position a lot of the time playing against these aggro decks, so you just feel like, you know, maybe the ground is fine, I've got that down, and I just want to try and take care of every threat. But as you say, maybe holding on to that go for the throat would have produced a better result in that game number 1. But that's why we'll play 2 games out of 3, and here is game number 2. Both players down with a good start. Heather has Denik, but look at this. The teacher has a hasty, bloodthirsty adversary with the +1/+1 counter from Kumano, faces Kakazan. And now we're going to see Deadly Riposte do some work here for Heather.
Yeah, and that Kumano, that etching, the Exile clause, is so relevant against Denik, because it edges out against potentially being a blocker later in the game. Preventing those extra bits is just so important. There's a Stormseeker.
Oh my goodness. This is not what you want to see.
And Heather is mana screwed, which is extreme. Oh, never mind. We might be fine.
Okay. There's the Sanctum. So there is the 3rd land, and that leaves open the option of both Deadly Riposte and Cut Down this turn. Heather must be breathing a massive sigh of relief right now. Yeah, let's just do this now. Get that done.
Something interesting, though. Something interesting is
pass
that
back over.
Here's an interesting fact about Cut Down. Cut Down kills a Reckless Stormseeker, but Cut Down does not kill a Shivan Devastator for 3 or a Thundering Raiju. So we'll have to see if that matters at all going forward, because
here is a singleton copy of Visions of Phyrexia out of the sideboard for the teacher. Kuro, do you love this? Because I love this.
Well, as a control player at heart, any card that gives you extra card advantage every single turn is a good card. It's a good Magic card. I approve of this massively.
All right, let's see whether this card advantage is going to help in the Battle of Mono Red against Esper Midrange. Rafina Scheming Seer is down. That's going to put a +1/+1 counter on Danik thanks to the Connive trigger, being able to get rid of those extra copies of Danik. Super helpful here, as well as making that lifelink creature bigger. What has Visions found? I believe there's a copy of Rending Flame.
Yes,
available.
It is the Mono Red control versus Esper aggro matchup. Wait, that can't be right.
Wait. Hello? Producer, did we queue up the wrong match?
The thing about Visions is that it's the card that gets better the longer it's out, right? So at this point, it is currently a 1-for-1, so it's paid for itself. Every turn it's out beyond that will be an additional extra card. So it's a card that actually wants Teacher to extend the game to create more value. We'll have to see if that really manifests the way it is. Then it comes back.
Yes. Phyrexian Missionary.
Ooh. Adversary.
What was that? Is it
and
adversary?
The land. It is a blood adversary, and the land to use to get the exact amount of mana you need to cast Rending Flame on Rafine, because the Power Stone token pays for the ability.
Oh my goodness. The Power Stone's paying for the Bloodthirsty Adversary ability is really sweet. And that is so sweet. And you can pay for the Ward 1. Oh my goodness. Things just working out perfectly here for the Teacher. She's already a game up as well, so just has to kill, take Heather down to 0 in this one in order to get through and clinch that playoff spot. But we're going to go back over to Heather, who finds a land. Cut down available, Danik available, Phyrexian Missionary is still there. Oh yeah, here we go. The attack. The 4 mana open. Let's attack with my 2/3 into your 3/3. And the Teacher says, you can have this one.
I am just amazed that Teacher didn't even attack last turn. Like, it really is mono red control now. That's so interesting. That's so transformative. I kind of like that. Oh my gosh. What gets exiled here?
Let's see what happens. It's just a mountain this time. So not a quote-unquote real card, but, getting those mountains off the top is still something that you definitely want to happen with your Visions. Here's Vodaran Epicure.
Well, exiling a land and being able to play it allows you to discard a land from your hand with the blood token much more comfortably, because you're going to still hit your land drops. That's extremely good. Oh, and Stormseeker.
Yeah, it's Stormseeker time. And Kuro, you know what else this Power Stone token pays for? It pays for your blood token, correct?
You know what else it pays for is Radha's Firebrand's ability as well.
Oh my goodness. I'm down. I'm so in for this one-off Vision of Phyrexia. Here's Cut Down. That's going to actually target the Firebrand and not the Wrecker Stormseeker, as you might expect. Though I suppose with this Danik Pious Apparition on the battlefield, that is going to be able to trade with the Stormseeker anyway, should the Teacher, opt to attack.
This is also kind of rough because it really would have been better to do that in response to the Stormseeker's ability to prevent the Teacher from actually attacking with the hasty creature, because it does counter that ability as well.
That's okay though. Well, I mean, Heather at least has gained a lot of life, right? A lot of life has been gained in this particular game. She's sitting kind of pretty at 15. Phyrexian Mystery is still pretty big. Still Wandering Emperor to go. Still Seraph still in hand as well. So, if for those of you out there who are maybe Canadian, may or may not be me, and hoping to see some Canadian competitors make it, I think there's definitely still a good shot here for Heather in our first feature match of the evening. But never count out mono red, even when their opponent is gaining life. All it takes is a couple of key removal spells, and you can see mono red right back in it, burning out their opponent. This Vision still drawing mountains for now. And Kuro, what does the path to victory here look like for the Teacher?
I think, honestly, it really, I was kind of joking about calling it mono red control, but I really think that drawing out Heather's threats and being able to absolutely myrtleize them all. If Teacher draws another bloodthirsty adversary, that will probably be game because it'll allow her to recycle all the burn spells. So there's a lightning strike for that Denic. That is just really rough because now that damage is gonna
there it is.
Bloodthirsty.
Wow.
So more card advantage. Every single thing is card advantage here. You get an extra card with the enchantment. You get to burn something. You discard the land because you already played one. Adversary comes in, burns for 7. Now she's at 10.
Wow.
We were
kind of like, not counting the teacher out, but certainly we felt like she was taking a little bit more of a defensive role. We were making the mono red control jokes, but all it took really was that adversary getting back that lightning strike, killing Denic, and all of a sudden the who's the beatdown consideration is changed back over. But now Heather has the Denic. Oh my goodness. Here is
Strangles.
Well, okay, but if you're Heather, would you have a thought for just flashing out the Wandering Emperor to try and save that Denic with a counter?
I don't think so. There's too many threats on Teacher's side. Denic may live. Maybe. I maybe actually, you know what? That could be a play for sure. Although Wandering Emperor would probably die immediately after. There's enough.
That's true. Oh, Shieldred the Apocalypse, the draw for Heather. Wandering Emperor did go down to minus and kill off that Reckless Stormseeker. So Heather managed to gain a couple of life. Is at 4. There is a Wandering Emperor that could convert into a 2/2, which could be a block. Shieldred is a possibility, and if Heather gets to untap with that Shieldred, would also be able to gain a little bit of life from the card draw side. The Steel Seraph, unfortunately, has just been rotting away in hand for Heather.
I just can't help but think if that 3 damage that was taken a long time ago really
Oh my goodness. Lightning strike off the top. Yeah, looks like a good game to us as well. And before this matchup started, Kuro, I was looking at these decks being like, wow, there's no way. There's no way for Mono Red. There's like 8 lifelink creatures at 2. Like, how is Mono Red going to get through this? But this has been very, very impressive indeed. And the teacher actually not going for the lethal lightning strike here. Decides to actually use lightning strike to make sure that Shieldred can get off the board. There is a clue that is going to provide a draw. And another Shieldred. So here is Epicure Part 2. What can Heather find? Rafine's Tower is not it.
If that was an untapped mana source, that Seraph could have come down, and that could have been like the whole thing, but that's so rough.
Really not the land that Heather was looking for.
Oh, that's in a Mechanized Warfare. I think that's game.
Wait, Mechanized Warfare?
Yeah,
is that what standard is at? Oh, that's the 3-mana enchantment from Brothers War. For red or artifact skills you control deal damage to something your opponent controls or them. It does that much +1. So a little bit of a baby Torbrand. Here's Soken-san. That is going to do it. Here is a huge attack in from the teacher. Yeah, that's a lot of replacement effects. We don't want any of those to happen, but unfortunately Heather has to choose one of them. And the teacher is going to get there, making it through with mono red 2-0 against this highly tuned against mono red list from Heather Bonnell. What an impressive showing here from the teacher. Says that she's used to playing a lot of competitive events in Hearthstone, is trying her hand at Magic, and wow, if that is anything to go by, definitely has a bright future ahead of her in this game as well. That was very impressive. Kuro, was that what you were expecting? No.
I mean, it's interesting because the thing that won teacher that game, I think, was the Phyrexian Dreams, was the drawing 2 cards a turn. Essentially a JM Day tome if you play Alpha Magic, because Yeah, Heather didn't get.
Why is that the reference? There are so many draws. You know what? It's fine. It's cool. It's cool. Yeah. No, I totally agree with you. That visions was so key in that last game. And not only that, but as you quite rightly pointed out, the interactions between Bloodthirsty Adversary and finding those extra removal spells off the top, being able to kill that Rafine in that particular turn using the Power Stone mana as well to pay for that ward cost. So everything working out great there for the teacher, and she's going to lock up a spot in the playoffs out of Division 12. So congratulations to the teacher. Oof. Yeah. That was, wow. Yeah.
What a card, honestly.
And this is what we were talking about. This is what we were talking about, right? Like, Mono Red just doesn't care. Like, oh, what, Grixis is the meta game? You know, you have these soldiers. If I want to play Mono Red, I'm going to play Mono Red. And always a force to be reckoned with.
My mortal enemy right there.
Your mortal enemy. Kuro is very much a control enthusiast. This is a control enthusiast stream. Let's have a look at the second feature match of the evening. And we're going up to Division 8 this time. And speaking of the international aspect of the VML, PK Shellboy actually hails from the Philippines and is playing all the way in the Philippines at 4-2 in Division 8. If they qualify through the VML for their regional championships, they would get to go to the Southeast Asia Championships, which is very cool. I think a unique experience you will not get anywhere else. And they played in a couple of VML seasons, narrowly missed wildcard last season, so trying again this time with Mono Black Aggro. Kuro, tell me about this deck.
Well, it's sort of a standard Mono Black Aggro deck. As you can see, there's Tenacious Underdogs, Phyrexian Sleepers, Trespassers, Shieldreds, Reckoners, Invoke Despairs, the whole shebang. The thing I think is interesting is the inclusion of Gix, which is a card that is extremely scary. Prepared for it, and my favorite, Mishra's Foundry. It's there. The littlest nail I've ever seen.
It's like, you know, I have to say, I appreciate how cautious, should we say, they were with the design of Mishra's Foundry, having maybe learned some lessons that were Faceless Haven related, maybe not, who can say. They really made one that was, it's cheap to activate, but it's just a 2/2. That's it. It can never pump itself while it's attacking, really, unless you somehow give it vigilance. It's a 2/2. That's all you got. But 3 copies here for PK.
Yeah, I've had much success with it personally, but then that's because I play control. So I don't know. Maybe it's differently used here. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, this deck certainly plays those Evolved Sleepers we were talking about earlier. Misery's Shadow, a couple of copies of Razor Lash Transmogrant. We can maybe see that in action a little bit later on. Phyrexian Flesh Gorger rounding out the curve for this Mono Black deck. And of course, 4 copies of Invoke Despair, because you cannot leave home without 4 copies of Invoke Despair in this format.
Yeah, and that card is just really good. It's pressure, it's removal, it just does everything.
Let's have a look at who PK is going up against and what deck they brought. It is Ruuchu. Ruuchu is in Division 8 as well with a 4-2 record. These two really battling it out for that second place qualification spot in their division. Ruuchu, a very well-accomplished VML player. I believe she was 7-0 in a season recently, and maybe last season, maybe the season before. So certainly a very accomplished player. Azorius Soldiers, this deck kind of the new kid on the block, the new hotness, shall we say. And it definitely plays some very impressive cards. Harbin, Vanguard Aviator, Skystrike Officer. Kuro, do you think this is the real deal?
I think it can definitely get there. It depends on how the sideboard goes. As we saw, the last deck, the Mono Black deck, has malicious malfunction in the sideboard. We'll have to see if that's an issue here. There's a lot of X2s, which is going to be a problem. We'll see how that goes.
You know, those blue cards also being joined by the kind of complement of soldier that you expect, the Valiant Veteran, the Siege Veteran, Recruitment Officer, etc. Let's go down to the action and see who comes out on top in this kind of aggro-ish clash. Although I don't really know if we can really call this an aggro mirror, because one of these players is probably going to be a little bit more aggressive than the other at any given point. Let's have a look at the opening hands. Beautiful opening hand here for PK Shellboy. Evolve Sleeper, Go for the Throat, Shadow, and Graveyard Trespasser.
I like this hand a lot. It definitely has a really nice curve. If I was playing against this, oh man. Playing against a deck like Soldiers, though, this might just not necessarily get there. It depends on how fast they get their threats down. Frontliner, okay.
Well, it is turn 1, and it is Yocean Frontliner. Evolve Sleeper is down as well, but that is not one that you necessarily want to be trading off early, Kuro.
No, of course. It'll get you too. Like on the turn that Soldiers wants to pop off, they'll just get the Frontliner down. Oh, there's the second one. Remember that red soldier from Eldraine? It feels a lot like that. They help each other out.
Oh, the Javier Dominguez invitational card.
Yes.
Fervent Knight, Fervent Champion. Yeah, those were some crazy times. So let's see whether these frontliners can do anything as impressive. PK deciding to pass with Go for the Throat up. Does have a Misery Shadow that they could deploy. And instead, it looks like it is going to just be passing with the mana up, and the frontliners are, of course, going to pump each other. What do you do here if you're PK?
I wonder if it was intentional to leave up Cut Down for this attack, because it probably would have been better to play it before attacks, because then that's a 1/1 that can't attack into a 2/2 sleeper.
Right.
Wondering about this is interesting, because obviously PK is trying to hold up removal by not casting the Shadow.
Does get to use the mana to level up the Evolved Sleeper. Oh my goodness, and that's a brutal Cathar post-combat. That's going to take out the Sleeper on PK's side, and all of a sudden things are not looking good here. Although Graveyard Trespasser is going to do a little bit of work munching away at this Yocean frontliner. That is not going to be coming back from the graveyard, and gains a little life as well.
Yeah, and those Go for the Throats are looking real nice now. They can basically be combat tricks when you can kill a Brutal Cathar on instant speed. That's pretty hilarious to do.
I have been both on the giving and receiving end of that particular interaction. And let me tell you, it is interesting when you get into these aggro mirrors, because you need to be counting out how much life you're taking, how much life you're giving away by attacking, and you see Ruuchu just passing the turn, gonna flip day to night, and Moonrage Brute is still killable with this Go for the Throat, but it's gonna cost you a little bit of life to do so.
Really pays 3 life. I wonder if PK is playing around the 1-of copy of Make Disappear right now.
But there's Valorous Stance, and PK's gonna have to pay another 3 life for this ward, but gets it done with that second copy of Go for the Throat.
That's interesting. And that's a creature that's in the graveyard to exile, so you're getting a little bit of that life back.
There it is. Brutal Cathar going away to the Graveyard Glutton.
Yeah.
And I guess paying 6 life and maybe gaining 1 back. Something that PK decided, obviously, that was worth it, but still feels like maybe a little bit of a heavy cost there on that turn. Yocean Frontliner is going to come back in again, but Ruuchu down to just 1 card left in hand. Recruitment Officer down on the battlefield, though. That is a way for her to draw a few more cards with this deck. And the Recruitment Officer, the printing of this card just changed the landscape for these white aggro decks so much in the past couple of weeks.
Absolutely, but there's a Gix in the hand. It isn't cast though. That's interesting. I would consider Gix an extremely large threat in this type of matchup, because it draws cards really reliably, which is extremely nice. That officer though is probably going to pop off this turn.
Getting Misery Shadow down for PK does seem pretty reasonable though, because this card is very scary. If you untap, you have all your mana open and you attack with it, it is very difficult for your opponent to make any kind of good blocks, shall we say. And that is a Siege Veteran that was found off the Recruitment Officer. is this going to change the board state a lot, Kuro?
Maybe. The issue with Siege Vet right now is that there's only 3 mana untapped, which means you can't officer right after you play it. One of the best parts about officer is being able to play a thing and continuing to use the ability. If Ruuchu had 7 lands here, it probably would have been significantly better. And nothing can die because the shadow is out, so that death trigger is off the table.
Yeah, it just has to pass the turn. Evolve Seeker gets another level on it. Here's the 5th land. Here is Invoke Despair. This is pretty massive. I mean, it's not getting, you know, the 3-for-1 on the board type thing that you normally see when it's against the Fable decks or against the Wedding Announcement decks, but does take care of a creature and draws 2 cards, and what cards they are. Phyrexian Fleshgorger as well as Shieldred the Apocalypse. Some big hitters found here for PK, and they feel confident enough to be getting in with the team.
I mean,
or at least with some of the team.
At this point, you have to give pressure. I mean, they're at 7. What can they do, right? Jeez. Shieldred. Oh my god, it's so good in this matchup.
Yeah, it does seem pretty sweet. And Ruuchu makes the block that you would expect. He puts that 2-1 on the Misery Shadow, gets that off the battlefield. Oof. How about this, though? Second Siege Veteran, and this harkens back a little to the days of the Luminog aspirants putting the counters on each other. But there's another Evolved Sleeper for PK, and it feels like this one has very much gone the way of Mono Black.
Yeah, I feel like PK is not so much thinking about how can I win this game, more just what's the most efficient way to win this game. It's not a question of if, but more when at this point.
Graveyard Trespasser does get to eat its own Misery Shadow. That's going to put Ruuchu at 3. All of these attackers are lethal. Has to make both blocks. Does get a couple of 1/1s out of the equation, though, thanks to, you know, them seeing each other dying.
Absolutely. If Ruuchu had drawn a Sky Strike Officer, that probably would have been put her back in the game, but without that out. Trespasser comes in, so that'll poke a little bit more.
Oh my goodness. And it's night. That means that 2 creatures are going to get eaten. Ruuchu is down to just 1 life. Can block this Gix. You know, that's not a problem. One of these 1/1s can jump in front of it. Oh, or how about here's Resolute Reinforcements, and a bunch of these 1/1s can jump in front.
Reinforcements or refreshments? That's bottle gnomes.
Yeah, Kuro, I don't know if we told you this, but your probation period isn't up yet, and I don't know if you can afford to be making such horrendous jokes at this stage. I'm just joking. I'm joking.
Yeah, the jokes are my job.
Skips it up. That is going to do it for game number 1. PK Shellboy getting there. And this black deck, very impressive indeed, was able to not only hold down the board presence, but answer all of those threats that came out of Ruuchu's side. Well, now we expected the malicious malfunctions to come in, but unlicensed hers, is that good? You can get the Yoshin frontliners, but what else does that do?
I don't know how useful it is here. I think that's the thing I'm trying to figure out. Like, the use for malfunction is obvious. It kills all the X2s that are out. It kills the siege vets. It kills the frontliner. It exiles everything, which can be a little bit awkward with the trespasser, but that's not a problem. My issue is that if everything's getting exiled by the trespasser, malicious malfunction, and the misery shadow, which is still in the deck, how can you make hers bigger? How is that a threat? It feels like that might potentially be a dead draw because it's not a removal spell. That might be kind of awkward. I'm not so sure about that.
Well, we do have to trust the players, though, because they have a whole week, basically, to prepare for each matchup in the division play stages. And we know that our players put a lot of time and effort into both tuning the decks, submitting the decks, and of course testing their individual matchups as we go in. Let's see how this works out. This is an incredibly removal heavy hand for PK Shellboy. 2 cut downs, Infernal Grasp, Malfunction, Invoke Despair, no threats though just yet. And Kuro, how do you like this opener for PK?
I mean, listen, a land 5 removal spells is like my dream situation with every hand, so I love this. This is great. Awkward for the reinforcements though, because that's a 2-for-1 if you try to 1-for-1 all of this. So I'm not sure. We'll see how this plays out.
Resident Reinforcement makes a couple of 1/1s. Here they come in. Fortified Beachhead is going to come down. That comes in untapped because there are soldiers on the battlefield. What does Ruuchu have in hand to follow up with? If there's a big 3-drop here, it could be awkward, but it looks like it's just going to be a pass of the turn, and PK's got to decide whether they're going to use a removal spell in the end step. Decides to just get Misery's Shattered out instead.
To me, not playing something on turn 3 signals either Resolute Reinforcements or a Brutal Cathar. I think Ruuchu might be about to land a Brutal Cathar right now. Let's see if that's... No, it's Denick. Okay, not a Brutal Cathar.
Okay, all right. It's Denick. There are not that many copies of Denick in the deck. I think there's just the single copy. And that is going to get cut down immediately because one of the things that Denick says on it, by the way, cards in graveyards can't be the targets of spells or abilities. So if PK was going to rely on those graveyard trespassers like they did in game number 1, that Denick could be a problem. And on the battlefield now, and here is Misery's Shadow getting in. Can't block that. Well, you could, but it's not going to work out well.
I mean, they'll just pump it to 6/6. So, yeah, there's that. Oh, it's cut down getting casted. I feel like that would make sense because you don't want to let Denick disturb. Although if Denick does disturb, perhaps that's a good use for malicious malfunction. So maybe that's actually fine. Interesting. Ruuchu's 1 land away from that land, by the way. The soldier land that lets pump. That's going to be.
Oh
really
yeah,
cool.
the Fortified Beachhead.
I
have a grudge against that card because I died to it in a Magic Online limited qualifier recently. Sun Cold Sentinel comes down. This card has been a feature of these mono white decks, or at least these white based aggro decks, for a little while, coming out of the sideboard here for Ruuchu. Does a little bit of graveyard management, and in the mono color basically is protection against everything, although it does not get protection against malicious malfunction. That is a bona fide Plague Wind for 3 mana. Devastating blow for PK there.
How about draw 3 cards, you take 6?
That's what Invoke is, right? It's a burn spell.
I mean, in my experience,
basically a Lava Axe. It's just like slightly better than a Lava Axe. That's all it is.
Slightly better.
I don't know why everyone's so hyped about this card.
It does 1 more damage, so it's better than Lava Axe. That's why.
Wow. Honestly, watching these games play out, Kuro, just feels like this is a nightmare matchup for the Azorius Soldiers deck. This black deck seems so impressive. Ruuchu's going to scoop it up. Mono black aggro getting it done. And we've seen 2 mono-colored aggro decks getting their, sweeping their pilots to victory in this last round of the VML. Kuro, what are your thoughts on this black deck?
Honestly, that post-board matchup with the malicious malfunction, that's so rough. It's so rough, honestly. And the problem with soldiers is you kind of have to play them out, so you can't even play around it that easily. Like with mono red, you have haste creatures and stuff, so you can play around something like that. You even have ways to pump your creatures, believe it or not. But soldiers only does that when you attack. And if you have, like, you say, Hero of Benalia, which is, or whatever, the one that gives indestructible when you discard, that doesn't dodge it either.
Right.
And it's so rough.
It is so rough. It's so rough. So Ruuchu's dreams, unfortunately, of making the playoffs are going to be ended here. But PK Shellboy from the Philippines making it through to their first edition of VML single elimination playoffs that's going to be coming up after the holiday break. So congratulations to them. Wow, Kuro, I'm impressed with Standard. You know, I've not been concentrating too hard on Standard the past few weeks, having been playing a lot of Limited, and just watching these games play out. The decks feel very fresh. They feel exciting. I did not know Mono Black was viable. I did not know Mono Red was viable. And I think people get this impression that Standard is kind of just all Grixis, all Esper, and that is just not the case anymore.
Yeah, I mean, if you look in the right places, you'll still see stuff like this. And even though there's a critical mass of Grixis decks, like we saw earlier, oh yeah, these decks are still, these other ones, they're around, and they they are not easy to win against.
Definitely not. Having just said that Standard is not all Grixis all the time, we are going to see a Grixis mirror coming up. Perfect segue. Couldn't have been done better. They are different Grixis decks, though, I promise you. We have Grixis artifacts in the hands of Choral, 5-1 in her division. So she has only taken one loss this whole season. And for anyone who's played a VML season, they will know that is a difficult thing to achieve. You have to be there week in, week out on the ball, metagaming against your opponent, practicing your matchup. This is a very, very difficult tournament to do well in, and she has done just that. 5-1 going into the last week is very impressive indeed. And Grixis Artifacts, another one of the new-ish kids on the block. We've certainly seen the Oni Cult Anvil decks do a lot of work previously, maybe in the Rakdos version, maybe in some other formats like Alchemy and Historic. We've seen this card shine, but now with the addition of Saheeli, Filigree Master, and cards like Mishra's Research Desk and Iconoclast, we're seeing this deck make waves in Standard as well. Kuro, tell me about this deck.
Wow, this is such an interesting deck. I don't think I've seen Saheeli be played against me ever in Standard, so I'm really excited to see this land. I actually had to look it up just to see what it did because I completely forgot. But this seems like such a powerhouse. I mean, if we pay attention to every single card in this deck, I think the only cards that don't make artifacts are Voltage Surge and Shield Druid. Every single other non-land card in the main deck in some way makes an artifact. Oh wait, except for Eaten Alive, I guess. But like,
sure, yeah, the removal spells aside, yes, everything else makes one or more artifacts.
Yeah, and then Saheeli pumps them all in like one turn, which is extremely fast. And all you need to do is get one or two of those emblems down. Each of those Iconoclast tokens are actually a big threat. Each of those Oni Anvil tokens are a big threat. That Bank Buster gets pumped too. 1 mana Bank Buster. Do you like 1 mana Bank Busters? Because Choral clearly does.
Love 1 mana Bank. This is so exciting. I cannot wait to see what it does because I love these cards. I love Oni Cult Anvil, one of my favorite cards from Neon Dynasty, Mishra's Research Desk, Iconoclast, of course, the new hot, kid on the block. Let's find out though what Choral is going up against, because we have on the other side LadyoftheCrease, who is of course a member of the production team here. She's still live for playoffs, 4-2 in division number 16. And for LadyoftheCrease, it is a more traditional Grixis, shall we say, the good old Grixis midrange. And LadyoftheCrease says after having her son, things have been a bit crazy, and making the playoffs would be like reclaiming a part of herself, which I love. That's just so beautiful.
This is an interesting list. I keep thinking about one of the comments that was made about the artifact deck in the previous slide was about how Corpse Appraiser only hits so many things. And that artifact deck only had 8 creatures in the main deck, I think. So this will be interesting with all this removal. In addition, Invoke Despair gets really awkward when you're playing against high masses of tokens decks. And you're not exactly upset if Saheeli dies, especially if you play her in minus immediately. So I don't know how good that will be. We'll have to see how it pans out. Brotherhood's End in the sideboard is the only wipe there. There's no malicious malfunction. So we'll have to see if that matters.
Brotherhood's End does make a lot of sense, though, and that is going to be able to take care of a lot of the artifacts as well. The Bank Buster that hasn't been crewed, or the Oni Cult Anvil. So the artifact side of that card has been You're so powerful, not only in this format, but of course in Pioneer and in Modern as well. Let's go down to the action. I want to find out what happens. I want to see this Oni Cult Anvil deck do its thing. And we're going to go. And that's not good. It's okay. It's okay. The first hand, not good. It is a mulligan to 6. This one looking a lot better. Double research desk Anvil, go for the throat. And you were just joining us. Welcome. We are in our third feature match of the evening. We have Choral on Grixis Artifacts going up against the Lady of the Crease on Grixis Midrange, the good old Grixis Midrange. And there is Oni Cult Anvil on turn number 2. Let's see what Lady of the Crease can do. It's going to be a pass back for now. Maybe a little bit of a slower start for Lady of the Crease. Fable of the Mirror Breaker not able to come down this turn thanks to the tapped land, Xander's Lounge, in hand for Choral.
I think that's honestly fine, though. Do you remember Expressive Iteration? You like having uncommon cards that draw you 2 cards with virtually no downside? Make Disappear.
Oh my goodness. Look at that. The level of respect. The level of respect for this card. Make Disappear. I think, you know, to some extent, Lady of the Crease kind of priced in to using that there, having left it up. But this just goes to show just how scary this card can get. Sulfur Springs is an untapped source as well for this Fable, so Choral can even use this Misha's research desk ability first. That's of course going to trigger the Anvil getting a 1/1. And would you like a Saheeli or would you like another research desk?
Well, if Lady of the Crease is not playing a lot of permanents, it's possible that she's holding many Make Disappears. But I think pressuring with the bigger creatures, bigger threats, that is, it's probably a good idea. I like the setup for Saheeli next turn. So if Lady of the Crease drops a Shieldred, for instance, a cut down on the token. Yeah, that's losing card advantage, though. We'll see if this skyrocket or snowballs.
It is losing card advantage. We have seen, though, that this Fable of the Mirror Breaker, especially if you don't have a board presence already, some way of blocking that token, the treasure generation just gets super out of hand very quickly. Here's Corpse Appraiser, and that thing that you were talking about just a second ago, Kuro, about how there are no creatures for it to exile out of the graveyard has come up already. Just having to play a 3/3 for 3.
And let me point out something else in addition first. Here, first of all, not discarding the Harvester just in case there's an additional Appraiser. Secondly, Corpse Appraiser costs only colored mana, so those pain lands is one less turn you have to tap the Anvil. That's a huge deal. Huge deal. I want to see if that matters at all. It probably will in the long run.
Well, Coral's definitely taking the aggro line here, deciding to go down with Saheeli instead of going up and trying to get that emblem anytime soon. Makes the Thopters, they have haste. Lady of the Crease down to 13 life. And we'll see whether Lady of the Crease can find a way to deal with these annoying, small but persistent, shall we say, threats in the air.
This is Shieldred mana, but she's probably purposefully not playing Shieldred here. And I agree with that, because the chances of having removal there, it's very likely. It's very likely. Interesting activation.
Gonna force that sack from the Oni Cult Anvil. Oh, hello.
Urtai resurrected.
Okay. Urtai takes care of Saheeli. Of course, Choral immediately draws another Saheeli. We've all been there before. Lady of the Crease must be thinking, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Come on. I just got rid of that. And there she is again, making some more 1/1s. And, you know, when it was 2 Thopters, it was maybe not that scary of a threat. But now this Air Force is going to mean that Lady of the Crease's life total is dwindling very quickly. Oni Cult Anvil getting the sack in as well. Yeah. Control players everywhere found crying and shaking. And by everywhere, I mean in the booth.
Now, actually. Specifically for this reason, getting destroyed by non-creature spells is why I play Spell Pierce now. Not saying that. Well, anyway, what's interesting is that double Shivan Reef prevents Invoke Despair from being cast.
You're right.
Oh, and there's more pain.
Still no creature to get. Yeah, go for the throat. Take out the last blocker. Lady of the Crease maybe has something to deal with one of these threats, but only called Anvil would be lethal anyway, and that is going to be it. Grixis Artifacts getting it done, making it look easy here for Choral in week 7. The key time, this is when you want to have the good matchup, right? Kuro, this is like you sit down and you want to have these great draws, you want your deck to just do the thing, that win it in on the horizon. And let's have a look at game number 2. So Healy, Blood-Tithe Harvester, go for the throat. That's a great hand.
Absolutely. I mean, you have a curve. You can deal with a Fable token. You can deal with an opposing Blood-Tithe Harvester. There's a tap land on turn 2 for Lady of the Crease. That's so unfortunate. We drew a research desk, so that's an extra 2 cards. Like, the gravy train is rolling, and it's Thanksgiving, basically. Choo choo.
I think as a British person, I would like to suggest that gravy is valid at all times of year, not just at Thanksgiving.
I agree.
You know, it's like, you know, there's adverts for don't abandon your dogs. Like, a dog is for life, not just for Christmas. Gravy is for life, not just for Thanksgiving.
That's so depressing that they have to tell people. Anyway,
they do. But what's not depressing is Fable of the Mirror Breaker getting to chapter 2 and hoping to flip here for Lady of the Crease. Blood-Tithe Harvester, though, is taking some chunks. Was that 2 spells being Oh, let's go. Just get shielded down.
Invoke Despair and Make Disappear is what was just discarded. That is interesting.
Wow, and that go for the throat, so key there for Choral. Didn't even have to take any damage, still at a very healthy 20 life. Here's Research Desk. Let's draw some cards. Oh, why do I have to choose only one of these? Choral asks.
It's okay, we can just unearth it and play it again. Like, oh my god, that Research Desk is just...
It's so good. How would you like an expressive iteration stapled to an artifact that gives you triggers?
And it triggers Anvil twice through its lifetime. Like, hello? It's so crazy, Wizards, why?
No, I love it. I've been loving the design of these kind of utility piece cards in the last few sets. Reflection of Kiki Jiki does get to flip. Lady of the Crease is going to pass again. No 5th land, so we wonder if maybe it's a little bit of mana screw or if there's a surprise waiting in the wings, ready to deal with something.
I think it's important that Urtai is probably coming down in some form or function. Potentially, maybe.
Here's Water Surge.
Is it
this
happening?
Would be a time. Does Urtai counter all spells?
Urtai counters spells and abilities or destroys creatures and planeswalkers. It's very versatile.
But Lady of the Crease does only have the 1 copy, to be fair, in the whole deck. So That's just go for the throat. Deal with this Blood-Tithe Harvester. Does have to lose that reflection. And Choral says, you know, okay, we can just chill out, hang out, do some anviling. And Lady of the Crease says, how about no? Not this time.
Blood-Tithe Harvester is in the graveyard, so Corpse Appraiser is able to get a card. Ha!
There it is. Corpse Appraiser says, finally, some work.
Shieldred was in the graveyard earlier, but you want to keep Shieldred just in case you draw Takenuma, which is really important. Because then you get it back, get that Shieldred. Pitched to 2 lands. So didn't take a land?
What could possibly be more important than a land for Lady of the Crease?
Invoke Despair, maybe.
Maybe. Here's Saheeli. Gonna make those Thopters again. We've seen Choral really prioritize this kind of aggressive way of using Saheeli. There's the 5th land. Is it time? Yes, it is. Invoke Despair comes. And that's going to deal with Saheeli. It's going to deal with one of these creatures. No enchantment to get, so that's going to draw a card for Lady of the Crease. Choral's still at a pretty healthy 19 down to 16 after the attack. But that invoke was very, very important for Lady of the Crease, getting that Saheeli off the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And drawing that extra card will just run you through your deck, having a 5th land, etc., everything. and now second Saheeli.
They always have it. They always have it. They never don't have it.
I think Choral is making a very interesting calculation here. She's paying special attention to the pain lands that LadyoftheCrease is currently using in her deck. There are a lot of them there. And since Choral is playing a deck that likes to ping down, and we saw it last game too, where having these little bits of damage really do matter and stack up over a long period of time in the game.
How about Shieldred?
Oh, there's the end, though.
Okay, so this time Shieldred gets to stick around. Choral can go Iconoclast into Anvil. Can draw a card with Saheeli. That is going to cost 2 life, thanks to the Shieldred. But not a bad one to find. Mishra's research desk off the top. That's going to make another 1/1 off Iconoclast. I am so excited to see Iconoclast go off in Constructed. I absolutely love this card. I think it's incredible. And this is exactly the home that I would imagine it in, with these kind of tricksy little pinging artifacts. You know, maybe I'm going to make some 1/1s. Maybe they'll get sacrificed to drain you. And LadyoftheCrease down to just 5 life. What can she find here? Brotherhood's End, we talked about in the deck from the sideboard. No copies of Malicious Malfunction. That's a Broadside Harvester. That's not a Brotherhood's End.
No, it's not. She's probably trying to find it, honestly.
Yeah, Duress. That's not helpful anymore.
Draws another card, though, from the Blood token. That is relevant.
Very relevant. Shieldred just kind of keeping the life total afloat here for LadyoftheCrease, facing 3 in the air. That's currently unblockable. Oh my goodness, and has to take another one for this Fable. But if LadyoftheCrease gets to untap, that does mean another 3 looks potentially for a Brotherhood's End. So it's not over here, not over yet, just here in week 7, division number 16. These 2 players are from, all the way down at the bottom of the tables. Only Cult Anvil number 2, and this is where things really start to get crazy, Kuro.
Yeah, this research desk is now really showcasing exactly why it's in Choral's deck. Sacrificing it here from the Unearth. And there's a Voltage Surge, which could be good. Does not kill Shieldred, but makes it impossible to block with it.
So is this lethal?
Yes, it is.
It's got to be lethal, right? Because there's 5 in the air plus 2 anvils that can both activate. LadyoftheCrease is tapped out. Nothing, no mana available. You know, no abilities on the battlefield to be activated. And wow, I am so impressed with this Grixis Artifacts deck. Saheeli just making those Thopters turn after turn, getting that life total down until this can happen. The Anvils are going to cheese damage the way to victory for Choral. Congratulations there to Choral, making that winning in division number 16. Kuro, I'm in love. I'm just straight up in love with this deck. I'm going to save it up right now.
I think because there's so few decks playing cards like Farewell, that is a main deck answer to something that crazy, it really takes advantage of the fact that there's all these Grixis decks that are trying to get these sort of bigger things in, because Anvil, the curve for Anvil is significantly lower than that. Not playing Invoked Spares, not playing more expensive things. Like, it only had 1 Shieldred, right? So you're really getting it. And Saheeli, I originally envisioned it as a +1 draw card and then -4 make an anthem. I did not think about it as a -2 make dudes, +1 draw, and then -2 make 2 more dudes. That reminds me of Lingering Souls back in Innistrad, and you'd play 1 card. Like, it basically gives you 5 cards.
You're right. It is Lingering Souls. It's basically Lingering Souls, but also with haste.
It feels like it a lot. And they're artifacts, so Anvil loves it. And they're artifacts, so you love it with the it's just so much synergy in that deck. It's ridiculous. I could probably write like a 12-page paper about it.
Well, Kuro, please, I know you've already done a lot of writing papers this week, so we are not going to make you write a 12-page paper. You've already got the job. You don't have to write a thesis anymore. But we do appreciate the analysis. We appreciate the thoughts, and that Saheeli, wow, what a card. I hope to see a lot more of this deck, a lot more of this type of strategy as we go in to the next few periods of standard, as we also look ahead towards Phyrexia or 1v1, the new set coming out in the winter. It is kind of winter, in January, February, later
February,
on, soon, imminently. Words, we know them. We're in the booth. That's our job. It's time for our final feature match of the evening. Kuro, let's have a look at what we're going to see and who we're going to see pilot these decks. We're going to Division 5 this time. 4-2 player Ari. They have brought Orzhov Midrange. And so when we think about the VML, we think about the types of players that play it, you know, there are players who will play the best deck every week, whatever they perceive the best deck in standard to be. There are players who will try to really heavily meta game against their opponent, so they'll look at their opponent's deck history and try and figure out what they're going to play and then try and beat that. And there are players who just play the same deck the entire time, and Ari is one of those. She's been playing Orzhov Midrange the whole way since the beginning. It's definitely worked for her. She's at 4-2. And she's basically just been working really hard on her piloting of it. Tell us a little bit about how this deck looks to win.
Well, it's very clearly a value engine deck. I mean, it does have similar elements to the mono black deck that we saw earlier, where it has really efficient removal, it has really good threats, but it takes advantage of white because you see 4 of Wedding Announcements, which is such an insane card advantage engine. You have Wandering Emperors, which is great, but not only that, white gives you good main decks, but it also gives you a really great and versatile sideboard. It gives you access to easy artifact and enchantment destruction. It gives you access to Destroy Evil. It gives you access to even board wipes or other angels, even more Planeswalker. And of course, the one of Farewell. Gotta have that one. So, you know, in short, you have what supposedly is an extremely versatile deck that can do a lot of different things whenever you want it to.
I will say I do respect any deck that will put a copy of a card that is 2 white, white, white in the sideboard and a copy of a card that's 1 black, 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 black in the sideboard. You know, you've got to really trust your mana base to make that work. But it has been working until now for Ari. Let's see who they're going to be playing in this last crucial week of VML Division play. And it is Sky Bauschmidt Sweeney. Sky, very, very accomplished player. Just says that they were a little disappointed with their first regional championships in Atlanta just this past few months, and a few near misses this RCQ season. So really hoping to get that via the VML, get into that top 8 to qualify for RC2. And Sky has brought Grixis Midrange. Kuro, what is this matchup going to be? Are we just in for a slugfest?
It really does feel like it, I think. Both of these decks seek to accumulate and snowball an advantage via, say, card advantage. Both decks are playing major things that are supposed to be like 3-for-1s. Like you have Wedding Announcement is a 3-for-1. Invoke Despair is a 3-for-1. Fable is sort of like a 2.5-for-1. Also, can I just point out, one of copy of Grixis Command in the main deck, I really, really want to see that get played at least once.
I love Grixis Command. For those of you who don't know off the top of your head what Grixis Command do, which of course you should, because Brothers War is an incredible limited format, you should definitely play this format. But it's a 5-mana sorcery, 3 black black. You can choose 2 of the modes. One of the modes is put 2+1/+1 counters on up to 1 creature gets lifelink. You can destroy each creature with power 2 or less, so it is a little bit of a sweeper for the smaller creatures. Return up to 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, or each opponent sacrifices a creature with the highest power among creatures they control. So Grixis Command really does everything. Anything that you could want it to do. It does removal, it does recursion, it gains you life, gets you value. So I love this card. Very excited to see it. Very excited to see whether it has a place in a deck that is also running the full 4 copies of Invoke Despair. So Sky loving these 5-mana sorceries apparently in this deck. How do you feel about that mana curve?
I mean, we saw it last matchup where there were all these different pain lands and such. We'll see if that ever pans out and if that becomes a problem. The difference, of course, being that Orsov does not seek to get under like the radar and get in that damage early. So those pan lands might not be hurting as much as in the last matchup. No copies of Underground Sea. That's interesting.
Well, that would be highly illegal in this format.
Or rather, the other one, Underground River.
No,
Sorry,
yeah.
the river.
Judge?
Not the usual tool. They're very similar names.
No, that's true. Don't worry, I got you. Underground River not in the deck. Sky maybe really has an awareness of, shall we say, how painful those lands can be. But is playing the Sulphur Springs, is playing the Shivan Reefs as well. Let's go down to the action. Get started in this mid-range battle between Sky v Sweeney and Ari. We do have hand cams for you in this particular one that we are going to be watching from Ari's perspective. Ari's going to keep a 2-lander, double underdog, Paragon, Wandering Emperor, and Edgar. And Sky's thinking about this 5-lander, decides to keep that one as well. Now, if you're on the Flood or the Screw side of this matchup, where would you rather be?
Well, from my perspective, Flood is always better than Screw, particularly in a deck that you know is playing card draw, because you can ensure that you'll be able to cast the things that you'll be able to draw. If you're stuck on lands and the other person is still landing cards and your deck isn't designed to sort of get creatures down really early, that is a really huge issue. Now, that issue might not happen to Ari because Ari does have 3 2-drops in her hand, which is super important right now. Because as we see, although Ari may not see this yet, Sky only has 0 creatures. So
that's true, 0 creatures, but does have 3 removal spells, as well as a Reckoner Bankbuster. So Sky is ready to do some killing, get rid of some of these threats on the battlefield. And Ari says, well, I'm just going to get in with this Decayed Zombie for now. And let's see what they decide to do. Presumably, it's got to be this Tenacious Underdog, right?
Yeah, if you're not playing lands every single turn, you don't really have a choice in holding up removal because there's nothing you can do once that's done. You have to be the one who's trying to get the pressure on the field. Of course, Sky has the Reckoner Bankbuster there, so Sky is really playing the control game right now. Just get down Bankbuster, get down the removal, keep drawing cards. Sky is going to eventually notice that Ari is mana screwed too, and they are probably going to take much advantage of that fact.
Got to think about which one of these threats to take out. It is going to be going for the throw on Jadar. That one is going away. Sky does have Graveyard Hate in the deck. Corpse Appraiser does a great job of taking care of those underdogs once they are dead, but no Corpse Appraiser in hand just yet. Finds a tap land, so that's going to be a nice one on turn number 3 with these 2 removal spells held up. And it looks like that's how the first couple of turns are proceeding. And Ari finds the 3rd land off the top. What a great draw for Ari.
Not bad at all. Just hoping that the 4th land is also untapped. If the 4th land is another copy of Scoured Barrens or another, are there any other that enter tapped? Maybe. If there are any, then that's going to be a problem as well. Because then you can't cast Edgar, for instance, on curve. Which you obviously want to try to do.
Edgar Charmgroom is an interesting one. This card did see some play in these Oars of Midrange decks back when people were playing, the Lolth and the Friends. Yeah, you know what I mean? Lolth and Friends, like just kind of, it was
so annoying.
Frenzy, like very difficult to get through. There it is, the 4th untapped land, Plains found for Ari. Mana problems solved, and now this Ari now looks like a genius for keeping that hand. I'm like, wow, this was perfect. Just everything you could possibly want.
I feel like Ari is probably gonna. Oh, sorry.
I'm just saying, Sky's gonna take a little bit of damage from the underdog and actually going to prioritize drawing a card.
So there's the Wandering Emperor, and the reason why this is being played right now is to play around Make Disappear. Because, of course, Grixis packs so many Make Disappears that you wouldn't be able to walk down the street without running into 3 or 4 of them. You have to play around that when you have threats like Edgar, otherwise you're not going to... It's just going to be a problem.
Isn't the whole point of Make Disappear that you don't run into them when you're walking down the street? Because they've disappeared?
Yes.
Got him! Yeah.
hate everything.
Well, let's see if Sky is hating everything yet. I don't think so, though. But here we go. Wandering Emperor is going to be putting some counters on. And once this Planeswalker gets going, it can be very, very annoying to deal with. Making these vigilant threats that can protect her and attack as well as pumping up the team, of course. Here is Underdog. And Sky's kind of got to make this decision. And yeah, there we go. Go for the throat.
This Fable is also extremely valuable right now because Sky now has the option to discard those 2 lands. Xander's Lounge is not a huge issue because that's cycling, but those 2 pain lands, you got to get them out of your hand.
Oh, so Sarah's Paragon is so huge. Oh my goodness, that's a Corpse Praiser. That is absolutely huge here for Sky.
Draws. Removal and a Xander's Lounge. Very good. And his Appraiser is probably going to find something as well.
Yeah, a Corpse Appraiser is going to take a look under the sheet and says, yep, that looks like a tenacious underdog to me, and I'm going to get rid of that one. So Underdog does get to go away. Oh, a little bit of hand cam there. It's got to see a little bit of what Sky was looking at. Chose to take Invoke Despair, and that is an answer to Wandering Emperor. So things turning around here for Sky B Sweeney in game number 1. Although Ari, with the flying threat as well as Edgar, Child Room still in hand, can start recasting things from the graveyard thanks to Sarah Paragon. We have, buckle up, folks, because we have some way to go yet.
Really? That was interesting.
Okay. Getting aggressive. Reckon a Bankbuster is going to come in. Go at the Wandering Emperor. And Sarah Paragon says, yeah, okay, you can have the Wandering Emperor. I'm going to jump in front of this 2/2, stop you from getting more treasures. But now Ari gets to get his Jadar back.
I do like Jadar here. Oh, sorry.
Well, this is just the Sarah Paragon, when left unchecked, is so horrendous to deal with.
I really do like Jadar here against Invoke Despair because you have no issue sacrificing that token. They do draw 2 cards, that's true, but you don't have to sacrifice that Paragon. And even if Jadar dies, you still have that Decay token to sacrifice. Ari's at a healthy life total of 21, so she's not worried about dying anytime soon. This game is clearly going to be about the grind.
Both players getting in the grind set.
The grind set.
Would you say?
Yes.
Oh, it is going to be Invoke Despair.
Here it is. There's the token. Draws another Corpse Appraiser.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. But that's a tapped land though that Sky has in hand. So
it is.
They can't play this Corpse Appraiser this turn.
There's no way to save that tenacious underdog from the Corpse Appraiser though. Even if it gets blitzed, it's going back into the graveyard. And Ari only has 5 lands, so blitzing it's not even the right play. Oh, Ari might decide to actually
But you can just cast it, right?
You could just cast it with the Paragon. I did momentarily forget about that. But will Ari anticipate that is the question.
Let's see what Ari decides to do. Blood-type Harvester does come down. Sky has been very aggressive with this Reckoner Bankbuster, and this turn is no exception. Making the calculation that Ari does not want to block with this Jadar because that's making tokens. But this is a huge attack for 7. And I have to really give it to Sky, I think, in this position, because a lot of players would want to just turtle down, right? Just try and find some answers to what's going on, try and deal with the threats. But Sky says, no, I also have to kill you to win this game. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. Anointed Peacekeeper was the find, but looks like Ari's actually going to prioritize getting Edgar down.
Yeah, Edgar Markov. Very interesting card here. Cannot get killed, cannot get exiled by Appraiser because it immediately comes back as a dude. Let's see, exiles that, of course. Top 3. B-type, mills 2 lands.
Harvester. Yeah, the 2 lands are going away. There is a Fable of the Mirror Breaker as well. And the Sky really trying to play to that point that all Grixis players love, when you have your flipped Fable and Blood Tithe Harvester down on the battlefield. So you can just kind of keep up this board wipe type effect where every turn you can make more Harvesters and they have haste. But we're going to see one of them sacrifice itself straight away to get rid of Sarah Paragon. Cannot let that stick around any longer. And Sky thinking about whether to use this Sulphurous Springs to cast Fable right now. What are the considerations here for Sky?
Well, I think there's really two major options. The first is to obviously play Fable. The other is to try to draw cards with Bankbuster, because Bankbuster isn't even going to attack right now. And if you draw cards with Bankbuster, that could theoretically mean you can discard something with Fable later. Like Fable getting down, flipping is probably so valuable here that you really can't avoid playing it and getting it down. Oh, Ari is in a rough spot right now because Sky has those values. I have a feeling it will actually name Bankbuster to make the ability cost 2 more.
Right, because not only would it cost 2 more to draw the card, but it will also cost 2 to crew.
That's right.
And there it is. Great call there. Anointed Piece could go coming down, naming Reckoned Bankbuster. Now, Sky does have a lot of mana to work with, right? They've had a lot of mana since the beginning of the match. Oh my goodness, that's Invoke Despair off the top. Yeah, I'm not going to discard that, says Sky.
I mean, I don't know. If you draw a land, you can play more cards later, right? I mean, no problem.
Sure.
Invoke is really interesting right now, though, because this Edgar Markov will die and it will flip, which is maybe what Ari wants. But
there's also a tempo aspect to Edgar, right? You can, sure, it comes back, it makes 1/1s, etc. But if you're in Sky seat, we've seen Sky really prioritize going after the life total. Here, Invoke Despair, Ari sacrifices the 4/4 and then gives a couple of great attacks for Sky's Corpse Appraisers, as well as that Reckoner Bankbuster.
Yeah, and Ari's taking 4 damage from this Invoke Despair anyway. Land, Corpse.
Oh, another Corpse
Appraiser. I think we do this control decks. So
to fizzle that Corpse Appraiser?
Exactly. Yes. I that's actually one really major reason. That's because Corpse Appraiser is such a fantastic card in Grixis. It's perfect stats. It's not. I don't think it's overpowered, but like you get it down, you know you're getting value. And there's that Sarah Paragon, I believe, is still in the graveyard.
Yeah, there it is. Sarah Paragon goes away forever. Oh, do it, Sky! Do it! Do it for the people! That was Invoke. That's a Grixis command. That is a counter spell. And Sky's gonna do that homework, look in the graveyard, figure out what the best thing is. No, Sky. Okay, we can't really blame Sky. No. They're trying to make top 32 of the VML. They're trying to lock up a spot in single elimination playoffs. So they're going to do what's best for them. We get it. Yeah. But I will be sending complaints in Sky's direction.
A liquefied letter that's written with an ink and quill, and you'll be like,
yeah, they'll be hearing from my lawyers.
Oh, the lawyers. Oh, no.
Not the lawyers. 90 Peacekeeper LX not to jump in front of these Corpse Appraisers. Already down to just 4 life. Wedding announcement, that's a draw. That makes more 1/1s. Can also cast this Tenacious Underdog. So, Ari is putting up the defenses again. But that Invoke Despair is going to be so impactful now for Sky.
Yeah, Ari's fate has been sealed. This game is over, unfortunately, for her. This is a guaranteed 4 damage. There is nothing that Ari can do about it.
Wait, but isn't there an enchantment?
Oh, there's enchantment. Oh, wait. That's right. Oh. Well, okay.
Well, but it's okay because there's still probably 2 unblockable damage coming across from from these creatures. Sky sees the line, hits the attack all button, and Ari just has to line up some blocks. No. Oh, no, wait. The one has lifelink. Whoa. Roll it back. Just... let's just ignore that last 2 minutes of coverage. Ari is going to live at 1 life thanks to the lifelink on the vampire made by Edgar. We are so used to those soldiers coming from the wedding announcement. We didn't think about the lifelink of the vampire that Edgar's coffin makes.
You know what I think would have been hilarious? I think if Sky had taken Gix's command and wiped the board of...
Yeah! I was just going to say, Gix's command was super lethal that turn.
Lethal guaranteed. I mean, it's still lethal because Ari drew a land, to be fair, but I think it's just... Can't even do that because Ari's only at 1.
It won't let you. It won't let you. I do appreciate Ari's dedication to trying to go out in style, but unfortunately, Irina says, I'm going to save you from yourself, and decides to not. And Sheldra seems like maybe a little bit of Winmore at this point. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to ask our expert commentator, Kuro, to decide whether that's true.
You see, Sheldra deals 2 damage to a player when they draw a card.
Oh.
And Ari at -2, so they will be super dead.
Super dead. Oh, wow. Okay. So they'll be upgraded from dead to super dead. Let's have a look at the sideboard. Since we get to look at both players' perspectives, we're going to get to see what they both do for sideboarding, which is very exciting. And also, first of all, having a look at these options, what do you like?
I like Cathar's Commando, potentially, because it deals with Reckoner. I like Farewell, because it cleanly answers Shieldred, Corpse Appraiser, Fable, and Bloodtide Harvester by itself. I like Destroy Evil to an extent, because it deals with Fable and Shieldred, mostly to deal with Shieldred, because you don't want to constantly be an X for 1. I do like Archangel Wrath as well, because you can kill those X2s, you can kill that Goblin token, so it is
That's
a
true.
nice... And it's lifelink, so you're going to basically prevent a Shieldred trigger, for instance.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Looks like it's not going to be that many changes, though. I think we just saw 1 card come in and then just a Hopeful Initiate getting taken out. Sky, this is somebody that has practiced this matchup just immediately in. Like, Brotherhood's ends are in. We're going to see some cheaper spells come in that negates out of the sideboard. Just make sure we're stocked up on the 2-mana answers. Don't need some Duresses. Don't need a Braids for this matchup. And the Harvesters are leaving the deck. What do we think of that?
Well, you mean the Bloodtide Harvesters. I missed the Harvester and the Appraiser. I think that's to make sure that Cut Down is a dead card. Or a deader card. I mean, Cut Down can still hit the Goblin token, but like I said earlier, that's card advantage for Sky. One of the things that I'm always thinking about when I'm playing Control, which is sort of what this is trying to transform into, is you can get virtual card advantage on your opponent if you're playing cards that they cannot, or that their hand is useless against.
Right.
So like this Infernal Grasp, for instance, if it hits a Corpse Appraiser and the Appraiser drew you a card, that's card disadvantage. If it hits a Goblin token, that's card disadvantage. It can't hit Bankbuster, so what is it hitting? It's hitting Shieldred, but that's turn 4. It's all this stuff is awkward. So we'll have to see how that pans out. Jadar comes down.
Yeah, I mean, Ari is off to a good start. Jadar down on the battlefield makes that 1/1. Adeline Resplendent Cathar is in hand, but no second white source just yet to cast her. So Ari would have really liked to see an untapped white source come off the top there. Does get to hold up March of Otherworldly Light as well as Infernal Grasp. And Sky says, yeah, I'm not going to let you go to combat. Take out Jadar right now.
Yeah, I think Sky is really thinking hard about whether they should cast Removal Spell or Removal Spell, or, and hear me out, a Removal Spell.
Okay, well now you're just being preposterous, Kuro. I liked Removal Spell, and I liked Removal Spell, but I don't know that I liked Removal Spell.
That's a fair point, actually. Removal Spell may not necessarily be as good here as Removal Spell because, that one is... Oh, look, it's Corpse
Oh,
Appraiser.
how about Corpse Appraiser instead? Thanks, Corpse Appraiser, for solving all of the problems. And Ari, actually very heads up there, got this Reckoner Bankbuster in underneath a Make Disappear. But unfortunately for her, the Abrade does come out of the deck for Sky and still has mana up for Cut Down as well. Wedding Announcement is a good draw. That's something that a removal spell, at least any of the removal spells in Sky's hand currently, does not answer. Takanuma gets down. But Ari really looking for that second White Source, would love to get this Adeline going.
I do like this Wedding Announcement because it does actually kind of address the mono removal spell hand that Sky has. Of course, Ari doesn't know that Sky has that hand per se, but being able to sort of proactively deal with all that removal spells, and even if you're playing against Grixis, you don't know what's in their hand, you have to assume they're playing a lot of removal spells. They're still 1-for-1s, and you don't really want to 1-for-1 those 1/1 tokens. That's awkward.
You definitely do not. Reckoner Bankbuster, though, a great find here for Sky that's going to address some of those value issues that you've mentioned. Oh, and that's another black source. Oh, that is not what Ari wanted to see. Does have not much of Otherworldly Light available, Infernal Grasp available, but kind of just has to pass the turn here and hope that this Wedding Announcement, you know, can maybe find some more material to work with later on. Oh, it's Grixis Command.
It's here. We're going to see it. Oh my God. Yes.
We're like children on Christmas morning here in the booth. We're just like, it's arrived. The Grixis Command. Is Gix Santa in this analogy? We'll find out. Reckoner Bankbuster draws another Reckoner Bankbuster for Sky. And wow, looks like Marge is going to just take out that Bankbuster right now.
This was interesting. Playing and activating it immediately instead of holding up a removal spell potentially, which we've established Sky has infinite of. That Cut Down is not going to help. I think that's interesting because now Sky's kind of like, if Ari had a Shieldred there, that could have been tempo on Sky. Might have been better to hold up removal, or maybe Sky was trying to draw lands. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think maybe just trying to find that fifth land, unlock the command, unlock the Brotherhood's End plus Bankbuster turn, etc. But does find the fifth land. It is a tapped one. Can do this Bankbuster thing though, and this card has just been so impressive to me. Just playing the Bankbuster with 2 mana available, you can hold up the card draw with the removal spell as well. It's just such a sweet play pattern. But Corpse Appraiser can no longer start getting in though, since these tokens are being beefed up. And there it is, the second White Source for Ari. It's Adeline time.
It's Adeline time. But this Adeline is just going to immediately die to go for the throat, unfortunately. Ari still has to play it because what can you do? But yeah, this Adeline's super dead, I think. Oh, Sky
it is pretty dead. I think you get one of these back anyway from the Adeline trigger. So I guess this is technically a free attack, as it were. Yeah, Sky says you can have this Adeline trigger. I'm going to draw more cards for now.
Interesting. 13 life. I'm wondering what modes on Grixis Command are going to be chosen. I feel like destroy everything with power 2 or less, but I don't know what the other one would be. Would it be Sacrilege?
It could be the Edict. It could be the Edict mode.
It is the Edict.
It is, yeah. So this is just a Plague Wind. BT dubs. And Ari's reading this being like, oh no. This is the nightmare scenario for Ari. Just held onto the Adeline for so long, finally managed to find that second White Source. And they're thinking, if I'd had that second White Source earlier, this would be a very different game, perhaps. But now with nothing, Stone Cold nothing left on the battlefield, taking 3 damage from this Corpse Appraiser. That doesn't matter just yet, but it will later. Oh, hello. It's Sarah Paragon.
Sarah Paragon getting that Bank Buster down.
Okay. All right. I mean,
they disappeared too little too late, but it's really not a problem. Sky still has a plethora of removal spells, a myriad of removal spells, if you will, a smorgasbord.
Yes, a smorgasbord of removal spells. I want to go to a buffet at Sky's house.
It's like each dish is based off of a removal spell from Grixis. You have to cut down
the finger food is just,
Finger food is Grixis command.
And there is a braid, though, as well, to take care of everything. And I think, Sky obviously it felt like they've had it all, right? Like, they've had so much removal, so much to work with. But if you look at the way that they've played this game, they've actually been very, very smart about how they've deployed their resources. They were very good at saving their removal spells when they didn't technically need to cast them, got maximum value out of that Grixis command, made sure that a braid got maximum value. So just really playing super tight every single turn. And that is the mark of a great player. Sky, just so experienced and such a force to be reckoned with in all constructed formats, not just standard. I know Sky plays a lot of Pioneer, a lot of Modern as well. Let's see. Fable of the Mirror Breaker is looking good. And Kuro, it's kind of feeling like Sky is starting to just kind of peek around the corner, shall we say.
Yeah, just a little bit. And part of this, honestly, is convincing your opponent that you don't have any more removal spells, right? By playing as little cards as possible, you basically keep your opponent guessing about everything. If Sky had tried to 1-for-1 everything and have like only 2 cards left in the hand, it's a lot easier to play around that. But this is the first time Sky has had 4 cards in their hand or less. Before this, it's been 5 or more. Part of this is because of the Corpse Appraiser. Part of this is because of the Bank Buster. And part of this is simply because Ari just hasn't been playing threats to die to those removal spells. So everything seems to be working out for Sky.
Oh my goodness, look at this as well. Despite that flipped wedding announcement on the battlefield, I believe this Adeline is going to be small enough to be cut down at 0.5.
No, there would be 1/5 because it enters, but that doesn't matter.
Oh, because it has its own. Okay, I see.
Sacrifice a pilot token to make disappear. Count unless you pay for. Wow.
Stunning. Just things working out just perfectly here.
Fantastic play on Sky's part. Using all the resources available as much as possible.
Oh my goodness. Fable the Mirror Breaker says, yeah, I probably don't need this Brotherhood's End ? No, Sky. Like, that's the point at which if you're the player that's maybe a little bit trying to be a little bit more aggressive, you see your opponent discarding removal spells to their favor, you're like, oh no. That's a power move.
But you know what's better than 1 Fable? It's 2 Fables.
Is it 2 Fables?
It is 2 Fables.
You know what's better than 2 Fables?
Oh, what's better than 2 Fables?
It's 3 Fables.
It's 3 Fables?
Yeah. It's a whole anthology.
Yeah.
On Sky's side of the battlefield.
Like you said earlier.
They brought the whole library with them. And these 2 goblins, by the way, can even crew up this Reckoner Bank Buster to get him for this turn.
Yeah. This would be a situation where Farewell would knock the game back into equilibrium, I think. If that was sided into Ari's deck at this moment, that could be like a card that would get her out of this. Exile those tokens, exile the Fables, exile the graveyards, even if you think you need that insurance. But all this is Elasto Core, the Super Soul Warden / Blood Artist of the set.
I love this card. It's really just very useful. It's kind of one of those Onical Anvil type cards where it's just so useful in so many different little ways. And certainly we've seen it do a lot of work in these decks as well as in the Mardu decks and the Sacrifice Synergies, etc. Even some combo decks out there playing this card. But here, when it's just playing off the top, and I think that's part of the problem with strategies like this Orzhov deck. There are not that many cards that are like Fable, right? Or like Invoke. When you're playing off the top, you're not really going to necessarily find cards that are more than a 1-for-1. Maybe Extraction Specialist, maybe Sarah Paragon, but they're kind of few and far between in the Orzhov deck.
Absolutely. And the thing is those are really good card engines, but they're simply not as efficient as Fable or Invoke Despair. In order to get that just 2-for-1 with Sarah Paragon, you have to spend at least 6 mana, because usually the threat you get back is 2 mana. But Invoke Despair is already 3-for-1, costing 5, and it's only 1 spell, so you don't even need like something to stick on the field for a while to keep getting that advantage.
Right.
Similarly, Wedding Announcement is nice. It makes a token every turn, but as a 3 mana value, it takes 3 turns to pop off, whereas Fable takes 3 turns to pop off, but the value that it gives you is far beyond.
Oh my goodness. Things go from bad to worse for Ahri. Rite of Oblivion is a removal spell. It could deal with 2 things if there was anything at all to sacrifice, but there is nothing to sacrifice for Ahri. And all they can do is watch as these Fables first of all get flipped, but that Fable that flipped the previous turn plus these 2 Goblin tokens, more than lethal. And this is just rubbing salt in the wound. Invoke Despair as well, living up to its name. And Sky is going to take this one down. Grixis versus Orzhov, 2-0 in a masterful display of how to really get every tiny edge, every little advantage you can possibly get out of this Grixis deck. Kuro, I'm so impressed with Sky's play.
Yeah, this is just seeing Grixis at its full potential, just tearing down a deck and looking at all of its pieces and just saying, no, like, I'm going to get more card advantage than you. Even though you're trying to play that game, I can play that game infinitely better.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And of course, you know, despite the fact that we did see a lot of winning-ins today, congratulations to Sky for making it through to the VML playoffs, as well to PK Shellboy we saw, as well to the Teacher on Mono Red, and to Choral on Grixis Artifacts. We also have to, of course, give a massive hand to their opponents for making it to this point. It is not easy to go 4-2. It is not easy to go 5-1 in the VML. Getting to the place where you are so close to that cutoff is always very heartbreaking to get so close and not quite make it, but we of course will see them in future seasons of the VML. And this one, Kuro, I know you weren't here last season, but it's a little bit more heartbreaking because in previous seasons we had a wildcard system, so even if you didn't make top 2 in your division, you had like some hope of getting through on your record. But this season is a clean cut, so it's just more brutal, unfortunately, for the players who didn't quite make it. The VML, that is it for tonight's feature matches. This stream is going to be back in 3 weeks' time. So we're taking a 2-week break for the holidays. And then the first week of January will be week 1 of single elimination play. And then there will be coverage on that Friday. So it's going to be, I think, January the 6th is the Friday that we are going to be back here with single elimination. And just to remind you all, there's a 7K prize pool this season. We have the top 8 going to their regional championships, the top 8 qualifying for the VML championships at the end of the year, which has 2 Pro Tour invites attached. And of course, the winner's token for the season, always a huge part of the prize pool as well. So lots to fight for after the holiday break. Kuro, thank you so much for joining me for this coverage of week 7. What's your kind of roundup thoughts on what we've seen tonight?
Grixis is good in standard. But so is Mono Red.
Well, okay, but which Grixis would you submit if you were playing?
I really liked the Artifacts deck, actually. Probably because it was
just so great.
That says +1 draw card. I gotta play a +1 draw card, right? I mean,
in this economy, in the Shieldred economy.
Yes.
Okay. all right. That's good to be self-aware. It's good to know. You know who you are and where you live in Magic. All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Kuro. And we have to, of course, say thank you to our sponsors, Wizards of the Coast and Good Luck High Five. Check out Good Luck High Five if you have not already. It's an awesome podcast by Maria and Megan, two of the coolest people in Magic, and we have so much to thank for them, not only for their sponsorship, but also for all of their advice and friendship along the way. Thank you so much to Phoebe, who is our awesome producer behind the scenes. She does literally everything that you see she does. She's just incredible, and she is self-taught, grew up with the VML. We love her, and thank you to all of our players and to all of you for sticking with us this evening. We will see you after the break. Have a very, very merry holiday period for everybody who is celebrating, and we will see you in January. Good night.